The debate on climate change has raged on through the last decade, with tensions running high, with proposals such as the New Green Deal and the United States pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement. But what if we tried something different? What if instead of the federal government managing climate change, the states did? Today I'm going to be finally answering the question, are states capable of forcing action on climate change if the government is unwilling? We're going to be answering this question using three main points. Firstly, why would states join the action against climate change, and what motives do they have? Second of all, is a state still capable of introducing new laws on climate change? And thirdly, what states are already doing things to prevent climate change? By the end of this speech, I'm going to be giving you my answer. So firstly, we're going to be talking about why states would be taking action on climate change. The National Geographic writes that the Trump administration has brought a flurry of new changes that roll back past Obama administration laws on climate change. Friends of the Earth.uk say that President Trump's administration has taken steps to pull funds from the United States Environmental Protection Agency and is already pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement. This is already showing that President Trump does not have a climate change mindset, and this may be a reason why states are finally taking an action. Trump has also threatened to pull money out of certain climate change organizations that the United States government funds. This would be a huge motive for states in the United States to start putting money, some of their own money, into climate change and fixing the problem. This is probably the biggest reason why the states is because the federal government is just simply unwilling and not going to do anything against this problem. This is why states so far would be able to enact on climate change. Secondly, we're going to be looking up if states are actually still capable of enacting on climate change. Inside Edition writes that Massachusetts can now legally limit CO2 emissions from power plants. The Massachusetts highest court recently ruled that they are allowed to limit power plants and companies' emissions of carbon dioxide by 7%. This is showing that now the courts are openly okay with letting the states take control of their own state and limiting climate change problems. This shows that if other states want to enact more climate change rules, they can join Massachusetts, and as long as their courts hold up against climate change, they would too be allowed to manage their own states and limit pollution and climate change. This simply means that the federal government does not need to be the final decider in climate change problems. The states themselves can manage themselves and fix the problems in their state without a president or Congress's approval. Thirdly, we're going to be looking at what states have already done something. This would be a great deciding factor in if states are allowed to manage climate change and not have government approval, because some of these states are actually already doing it. EDF.org writes that while federal policies will ultimately be necessary to fully control climate change, states are already taking actions and have had actions in place to prevent climate change. Virginia Air and Pollution Control Board set in the Commonwealth on a path to reduce carbon pollution from power plants by more than 30% by 2030. This is showing that there are already rules in place in Virginia that prevent carbon emissions from coming out at a certain rate. Virginia already has laws to manage carbon emissions. North Carolina, after being hit by hurricanes and over again and having many devastating issues to their environment, the governor, Roy Cooper, plans to now put an executive order to eliminate carbon emissions by 40%. Again, governors of states can give out executive orders without Congress or presidential consent. This simply means that if a governor sees fit, and again, won't get a lot of criticism for it, they can enact laws immediately. As this shows, he is going to be enacting a law that will prevent 40% carbon emissions from factories, power plants, cars, etc. Other notable things that are happening around the United States as well is that Colorado is actually supporting electric vehicles, giving grants and money to electric companies to help them raise money and get money, and supporting the electric car companies, getting them stronger so we can slowly turn away from gas and preventing carbon emissions. California issued a plan to cut methane emissions coming from houses. This plan will take into effect very soon and again is completely legal without government consent. New Jersey also plans to get rid of 100% of their pollution by 2050. If they're already planning this huge project, which will most definitely take billions of dollars, we can already see that it is legal to do these things, as these states have already done and are planning to do many things to do with climate change. This is another big reason why states are allowed to enact climate change rules besides the federal government. So to finally answer the question, are states capable of forcing action on climate change if the government is unwilling? The answer is simply yes, because states have already done it and are doing it in the future to prevent climate change, with some presidents, including President Trump's administration, not exactly supporting climate change in reality and actually pulling money from some of the agreements and rules. We can obviously see that some states that usually support climate change ideas would step in to take the place of the federal government. This is already happening throughout the United States and shows that states are willing and are legally willing to help with climate change problems throughout the United States.